The opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange shatters the morning silence. On the central ticker, a number pulses in bright green, defying every law of market gravity. $1.8 trillion. It is not just a valuation. It is a declaration. The trading floor noise drops away, replaced by a sudden, heavy stillness. In the center of the room, Elon Musk stands before a row of silent bankers. He does not reach for the remote to show schematics of engines or combustion chambers. He does not mention thrust-to-weight ratios or fuel efficiency. Instead, he taps the screen once. A single word appears. Data. The bankers lean forward. Pens stop moving. The air in the room shifts from the frantic pace of the market to the cold, calculated weight of a new era. Musk looks at the men holding the capital of the world and speaks. "You are not here to fund a rocket company," he says. "You are here to buy the foundation of the next industrial revolution." His gaze is fixed, ignoring the spreadsheets scattered on the mahogany tables. He is not selling them metal or fire. He is selling them the control of the global information stream. Musk pivots to the screen. A graphic renders the heavy lift vehicle, Starship, dwarfing the launch towers of the past. He cuts through the technical jargon with a single, brutal statistic. Current orbital access costs thousands of dollars per kilogram. It is a barrier that keeps the stars out of reach. He taps the screen again, and the number collapses to under $100. The room goes quiet. That shift is not just an engineering milestone. It is the pivot point for the entire global economy. Without this cost reduction, the orbital data center remains a daydream, a piece of science fiction locked in a dusty book. With it, the cost of moving infrastructure into space drops below the cost of maintaining a physical warehouse in a major city. The bankers look at the projected margins. They perform the mental arithmetic. The sheer scale of the savings forces a recalculation of every asset they own. Musk waits. He lets the logic sink into the mahogany-paneled room. The skepticism that defined the morning is being replaced by the cold, sharp hunger of an opportunity that cannot be ignored. The math holds. The vehicle is ready. The barrier to entry has finally been dismantled. Musk pulls up a new slide. It is not a blueprint, but a flowchart of a closed-loop system. Connectivity, infrastructure, and intelligence, he says. He traces the lines with his finger. Starlink acts as the nervous system, a web of low-latency beams pulling raw data from every corner of the planet. Starship is the delivery vehicle, the heavy lifter that builds the physical processing power above the clouds. Then, the final piece, X, AI. It is the brain. The logic is seamless. Massive server racks are launched into the void, turning the orbital plane into a singular, floating processing cluster. Billions of sensors on Earth feed this grid. The data travels up, is processed in the vacuum, and beams back as near-instant insights. It is a closed loop of infinite feedback. The bankers watch the diagram. They see the three pillars locking together. This is not just a collection of companies. It is a synchronized engine. Musk pauses, letting the image of the orbiting cluster settle. By moving the processing layer off the surface, the entire planet becomes a peripheral device. The system is no longer confined by the limitations of the ground. It is autonomous, it is integrated, and it is ready to scale. The room is no longer looking at a pitch deck. They are looking at the architecture of a new world. Musk clicks to the next slide. It shows a thermal map of a massive data center on Earth, glowing red, struggling to cool itself. He ignores the cooling fans. He points to the void. In space, the ambient temperature is near absolute zero. No heat sinks, no energy wasted fighting the laws of thermodynamics. He lists the other dead weights. No real estate taxes, no zoning permits, no geopolitical borders to cross. The physical constraints that define modern industry simply do not exist in orbit. He wipes the screen clean. A single figure appears in gold, $28 trillion. The air in the room goes thin. He defines it as the total addressable market for a planetary scale intelligence layer. This is not a marginal improvement on current server capacity. It is a total migration of the world's computational weight into the vacuum. The bankers lean forward, their fingers hovering over calculators as they check his math. The numbers are staggering. The logic is brutal. They're no longer looking at a tech company. They are looking at the foundational infrastructure of the next industrial revolution. Musk lets the silence hold. The scope of the gamble has just expanded from a simple rocket launch to the colonization of the global economy. The vision shifts to the launch pad. Phase 1 begins with a single aggressive objective: prove that AI can function in the vacuum. The first Starship clears the tower, carrying nothing but specialized server racks. The target is a low Earth orbit, a delicate dance of velocity and altitude. On the ground, the control room falls into a forced, heavy silence. The mission is not just about reaching orbit. It is about the payload's integrity under the stress of atmospheric exit. They monitor the first signal transmission. The latency counter flickers, a sequence of digits racing against the speed of light. If the hardware fails to sync, the entire trillion-dollar premise collapses. 3 seconds pass, then 5. The screen registers a stable handshake. Data packets begin to flow from the orbiting racks, processing through the vacuum and returning to the ground in milliseconds. The test is a success. The AI is breathing in the cold. It handles complex queries with the same precision as a terrestrial cluster, but with a fraction of the energy. The team looks at the fluctuating graphs, their faces illuminated by the green light of confirmed connectivity. The theoretical has become physical. The first modular node of the orbital cloud is active. The test was merely the spark. Now, the forge ignites. The second phase demands a velocity that defies traditional aerospace manufacturing. The cadence shifts. 100 Starships launch every month, a relentless drumbeat of steel rising into the black. They do not just carry hardware, they carry the building blocks of a modular, orbital grid. Each arrival locks into the last, a puzzle of processing power expanding across the sky. The grid grows dense, a web of silicon and solar arrays catching the constant, unfiltered light that never fades. As the network reaches critical mass, the nature of the mission changes. The nodes begin to communicate laterally, bypassing the ground entirely. They manage their own thermal loads. They calibrate their own power distribution from solar arrays that never see the sunset. The architecture becomes self-correcting. It is no longer a collection of servers managed by engineers in a bunker. It is a sprawling, autonomous intelligence engine. It breathes, adjusts, and scales without a single command from below. The momentum is absolute. The grid is no longer just a project. It is a permanent, self-sustaining layer of the planet, humming with the weight of global data, indifferent to the world turning beneath its feet. But the momentum carries a shadow. The risk is not theoretical, it is absolute. Every launch is a gamble against the mechanics of gravity and force. If a single Starship stutters during ascent, $1 billion of hardware disintegrates, turning into a cloud of jagged space debris. The math is brutal. There are no fail-safes for a total structural collapse. If the orbital cloud experiences a critical error, there is no technician to climb a ladder and pull the plug. There is no repair crew to navigate the vacuum. No manual override. No reset button. Once the hardware is in orbit, it is beyond the reach of human hands. A short circuit in the cooling loop or a corrupted data node becomes a permanent scar on the grid. The infrastructure is entirely self-contained and therefore entirely vulnerable. If the logic fails, the system fails, and the investment vanishes into the silence of the void. The bankers watch the screens, seeing the reality of the stakes. Every advancement is a high-wire act with no safety net. The grid is a marvel of engineering, but it is also a fragile, singular point of failure. It either functions with perfect, machine-like accuracy, or it ceases to exist entirely. Musk did not wait for the silence to break. He reached out and slid a digital pane across the primary display. The room dimmed. A map of the Earth appeared, but it was not the world the bankers knew. It was a globe wrapped in a luminous, interconnected web of light. Thousands of nodes pulsed with the heartbeat of global data, a golden lattice suspended in the black. He tapped the screen, and the light flared. "This is where the next industrial revolution lives," he said. He gestured to the floor, then to the ceiling. The future of intelligence is not in a desert facility in Nevada, buried under cooling towers and land leases. It is 200 miles above your heads, where the vacuum does the cooling for free. He traced the lines of the web. These data centers are not tethered to borders. They are not beholden to regional power grids. They exist in a permanent state of orbital efficiency. Look at the map, the ground-based cooling racks, the massive server farms, the localized data centers. They are becoming relics. They are static, expensive, and limited by the very gravity they cannot escape. The room watched the web rotate. It was clean, it was efficient, and it was entirely beyond the reach of the old world. The silence in the room changed weight. It was no longer the silence of polite attention. It was the heavy, suffocating quiet of a decision being forced upon them. Bankers leaned forward, their eyes darting between the shimmering lattice on the screen and the rows of figures on their tablets. They were running the numbers again, searching for a flaw, a reason to say no. They found none. The logic was cold, sharp, and absolute. Every spreadsheet proved the same outcome. Terrestrial infrastructure was an anchor, pulling them toward obsolescence. A lead analyst dropped his pen. It clicked against a mahogany table, a tiny sharp sound that echoed in the stillness. He looked up at the web of light, then back at his screen. The delta between their current assets and the projected dominance of the orbital cloud was not just a gap, it was an extinction event. If they hesitated, they would be liquidated by the sheer speed of the new economy. They saw the cliff edge. They saw the project. They saw the choice. To bet on the old world was to guarantee their own collapse. To bet on the orbital cloud was to own the future. The numbers did not care about risk anymore. They only cared about the cost of being left behind. The meeting did not end with a handshake. It ended with a collective nod, a quiet admission that the old world had officially surrendered. Chairs scraped against the floor as the bankers stood, their focus shifting from the spreadsheets to the reality of the capital already in motion outside. The ticker on the wall flickered, then surged. The stock price climbed, a steady, relentless line carving its way upward in defiance of market gravity. The gamble was no longer a pitch. It was a signed mandate. Thousands of miles away, the launch tower groaned under the weight of the next cycle. A plume of white exhaust blossomed at the base, followed by the roar of engines tearing through the atmosphere. The vehicle cleared the tower, a streak of fire marking the boundary between the Earth and the void. Every successful ignition was a payment, a down payment on a world that would no longer be measured by square footage or terrestrial borders. The orbital cloud was live. The infrastructure of the next industrial revolution was rising on a pillar of flame, escaping the pull of history to claim the sky. The era of the orbital cloud had arrived, and there was no turning back.